Welcome to the Dice Tower, a series of video reviews about board and card games. Here are your hosts.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Winter Spectacular. I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Z Garcia.
I'm Mike Delisio.
And I'm Wendy Yee.
Today we're doing a review of Mobile Markets, a smartphone ink game. Now, this is part of the Dice Tower Essentials line, so it's an automatic, I like the game. That's, that's how it works.
Sure.
This game could be called, and some people may have called it, mobile smartphone card game.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. It's a completely different game, but with some similarities.
Sure.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Sure.
And a better cover. Less hipsters. I didn't hate that. I don't know why I hate the smartphone cover.
Technically, if you consider those two ladies hipsters, there are more hipsters. I believe there is
Well,
one.
that guy's a hipster.
Oh, there we go. Bam, right there.
I have
No,
no
I
problem
like
with
this
the
cover.
covers.
I like this
them
cover
both.
quite a bit, and I like the other one quite a bit. I think they are.
Thank
they're-
you.
They're
Everyone's always
modern,
criticizing it.
They're very modern covers for
Yes.
board games, and
Yeah.
they stand out.
I agree.
I like that.
Now, before we jump into this, who here has played smartphone?
A lot.
Oh, we all
I played
smartphone.
once.
Mm-hmm.
I
Only
played once, a long time ago.
All right. Well, Mobile Markets. How does it play? Mike is going to quickly tell us.
Quickly.
Okay, here we see a setup for Mobile Markets, and for the purposes of this overview, I'm going to treat it as if it is a two-player game. In Mobile Markets, what you are trying to do is have the most money at the end of the game, and you do this by producing phones at the best profit margins so that you have more money than your opponents at the end of the game. The game is going to be played over a series of rounds, 5 rounds that are tracked in these event cards. Randomly, you'll choose 5 event cards out of a larger deck, and when that runs out, you'll know that you've gone through the last round of the game. Each round, which thematically makes up a year in the game, you're going to go through these phases, starting at preparation, ending in profit. So you're going to go right along this track using this little marker here. You're going to do that 5 times. You'll total up the amount of money you've made, and the person with the most money is going to win. All right? So I've got my player board out here. I've got the starting components. You have a starting feature that is randomly drawn, and you have a starting card here that is also randomly drawn. They come from specific cards that have start on them so that you can delineate those from the other ones up here. All right, so in the game, I'm just going to kind of go quickly through all of these phases to kind of give you an idea of how the game is played. The first part of a round is a preparation round, and the first thing you would do is reset all price markers to 5. So throughout the course of a game, you might be pricing your phones differently. At the beginning of the round, everything goes back to a base of 5. All right? Then you're going to reveal the top event card, and there's a couple of things you're looking at here. First is there's going to be some type of event, as the card states, that's going to affect this round. And so what this is saying is place 3 more of these cards, and this round players can buy 2 of them. Normally you can only buy 1 per round, so I'm not going to actually do it right now, but I would take 3 more of these cards and I'd put them in that market. The other thing this is going to do is it's going to add a particular number and type of customer to the market. All right, so in this case, this is the 2-player setup card. There's a base of 2 of each of the 3 types of customers. You've got variety-seeking customers, regular customers, and complex customers. All right, and so there's 2 of those that are in the market to begin with. We're going to be adding an extra variety-seeking customer. So I can go ahead and do that now. I take 3 of these cards, and I'm going to place them out here in the market. All right, I'm going to look at the price value up here, what they're willing to pay, and I'm going to place them accordingly under the corresponding kind of column there. All right, so there's 3 there, 2 of these regular customers. We've got a 4 and a 5, and then 2 of the complex customers, which are both 8. So I'll place them here under the 8. All right. In later rounds, there's going to be some other preparation steps done where cards that weren't chosen in the previous round are going to get these -1 tokens on them, making them cheaper to purchase in later rounds. But I'm not going to mess with that, and you wouldn't do it in the first round anyway. All right, so the next thing you're going to do is you're going to go on to planning, and this is where your 2 pads here are going to come into play. And really what you are doing here is you are essentially planning for the rest, as it says, planning for the rest of this round. So all of the other phases in this round are going to be dependent upon what you choose here, all right? And the way, these are double-sided, and you can overlap them in such a way that one of the squares, if you think of these as all being kind of distinct cells, one of these cells have to be covered by the top one. So you couldn't do this, for example, but you could do that. You could do that, you could do that, you could do that. You cannot just completely overlap them like this. You have to at least have one of these showing. So let's just say for the purposes of example, I want to do something like this. Okay, let's just say that I made this my planning, and this is what I have for the round, and I'm just going to go with this. All right, so I've placed that. The next thing that you're going to do is once everyone's done it, you reveal them, and then you're going to go to pricing. All right, so when you look at these, you've got a minus $ showing there. There are also some plus $signs. So if the base is 5, I'm going one less than that. My price is now going to be 4. My kind of base price there is 4. Let's say, for example, that red had kept it at 5. I would adjust it accordingly. All right, so there we go. Pricing, it's as simple as that. You determine what your price for the phone is going to be, and then that's going to set a turn order. The players in the lower value for their phones are going to be earlier in turn order. So at this point, blue, set at 4, they'd be going earlier. All right, now you go to technology, and that's where you're going to be looking at these purples symbols here. So I have 2 showing. I've got basically 2 spending power for these cards out here. Typically, you can buy one of these cards and as many of these features as you want, but the event here said that you could buy 2. Again, I didn't put more out there, but normally you'd buy one of these, as many of these as you want. I only have 2 to spend, so perhaps I wanted to go ahead and get this card, which costs me 1. I have 1 left over, so I could take one of these tokens I can use on a later round. All right, so that is that. The other player or players would do that as well. Then we go to marketing. This is in reverse turn order. So in this case, the red player would have the first chance at buying one of these cards or getting a private customer. All right, so here I've got 2 of those corresponding symbols showing. Sorry, I've got 2 of those showing, so I could do a couple of things. Let's say I wanted to buy one of these, which gives me a particular ability during a phase, which is this marketing phase. So in future marketing rounds, I could take a private variety customer from the deck if there's no player with a higher price than me. So that's just something I can have there in my tableau, and it would potentially trigger in a later round. The other thing, since I only spent 1 of my 2, is I could take a private customer from any one of these decks. And these are going to be customers that only I will sell to, and I have to sell to them first. So let's say I chose a regular customer, and now I've got this private customer access to them. All right? That is marketing. Then you go to production, where you're going to decide, or you're going to determine, how many phones you're producing this round. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to sell them all, but that's how many you're producing. And you do that by looking at a couple of things. One, you look at the number of these crates symbols that are showing. So I have 3 here. Then you also add to that the number of cells that are covered on the bottom. So 1, 2, 3 are covered there. 4, 5, and there's 1 on this event card, so 6. So I am producing 6 phones. Again, doesn't mean I'm going to sell all 6 of those phones, but that's how many I'm producing, and you track that right there. Okay? Then we go to sales, and this is where you're creating your phone for this round that you are trying to sell to these customers. All right? So let's look really quickly at these different customers to explain what this means. What this means for these variety-seeking customers is they'll pay up to $2. Well, I'm just going to use the word dollars. They'll pay up to $2 for your phone, or they'll buy your phone at whatever you're pricing it at if you have 4 stars in your feature cards. All right, and I'll explain that in a moment. So these are either or. They won't pay more than $2 unless you've got 4 stars on your feature cards. Then they'll pay whatever you're pricing at. Similarly here, they'll pay up to 3 unless you've got a flip phone feature and 3 stars. All right? The regular customers are just based on dollar amount. They will pay up to $4. Now, if you have your phone priced at 2, they're not going to pay you 4, they'll pay you 2. This is just saying they'll spend up to 4, up to 5. These complex customers here will pay, they're willing to pay more, but they're looking for very specific things. They're saying they'll pay up to 8, but you have to have a flip phone feature for them to be interested in your phone. All right, so here's where you're setting what your features are. Now, I know I've got 6 phones I'm trying to sell, and I'm going to sell first because I'm earlier in turn order, and that's super important in this game, is that, yes, why would you ever go lower on your price? Because you're going to potentially make less per phone. Well, it's because you're going to have first access to the customer market here. All right, so I know that I'm going to sell this phone because this is my private customer. I have to sell to them first, and they'll pay up to 5. Right now, I'm selling it at 4. So they're going to buy this phone. I know they're going to buy a phone, and they're going to buy a phone. There's 3 out of my 6 right there. Unless I can get multiple stars on my features here, that's not going to necessarily, they're not going to buy them. And unless I can get flip phones there, they're not going to buy them as well. Well, I don't have access to flip phones. All right. I could have purchased it up here, but I did not. Actually, I don't think I had enough, but let's say I did, I could have done those. All I've got are these 2 features, and these 2 features don't do anything for me here because there's only 2 stars. If I can get a 3rd star, then maybe over here it would help me. Actually, they wouldn't. So if I wanted to place features on my phones, I'd put them down here. There are 3 slots. The issue is that you've got a base cost of 1 for every phone you produce. So what that means is that I'm setting the price at 4, but my net profit is going to be 3 because there's a production cost. Any of these cards that have this little symbol here is adding to that. So if I were to put this down here, now my net profit per sale would go down to 2 because you're subtracting 2 from whatever your base was. But I'm not going to put either of these features on here because they don't help me sell to more customers. And then I would sell the profit per sale and sell those. Now, I would sell to this customer because they'll pay up to 5. They're not going to, none of these customers are going to buy. It would sell to this customer, and it would sell to this customer. So I'd have my little sales stack here of customers I sold to. These 2 are not interested because I don't have flip phone technology. And then the other players would do in turn order. They'd have access to these markets, always selling to their private customers first. Then we go to profit. The first thing that you look at there is there's a bonus for whoever sold the most total phones, and that's going to be $8, $4, and if you had 3 players or more, $2. All right. You would also resolve any effects of cards you have here. So this says take 1 private variety customer from the deck if you don't sell all of your phones at sales. Well, I didn't. I only sold 3 out of my 6 phones. So because we're in the profit phase, this card would trigger. I would take a new private customer for later rounds. Okay. All of these cards tell you when they trigger, during sales, during game end, during marketing. So it kind of helps you keep track of that. So you would do your bonus, and then you would resolve any of the effects that trigger on the cards, and then you're going to receive money equal to what your net profit is times the number of phones sold. So my net profit was 3, I sold 3, so I would get $9 plus, again, whatever my bonus would have been dependent upon what the other player had sold, how many they had sold. So that's all of the phases of the rounds. You're going to do this 5 times. You're going to obviously be adding new features to your phones. More and more customers are going to come out that you can potentially try to sell to. You're going to play through this for 5 rounds or 5 years. The player with the most money at the end of the game is the winner of Mobile Markets. Let's head back over and let you know what we think of it.
Now, while we were watching that overview, I was remarking to everyone here that there's a lot of text on those cards out there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's a lot going on in this game, but the game has a flow that I really like. It's when you get a special card or a special ability, it says you play it during this phase.
Right.
And I found that there's not a ton of questions asked over the course of the game because of that.
It is very clear. The rounds are super clear too.
Yes.
Like everyone does round 1, done. Or step 1, and then everyone does step 2, done. And it flows very nicely.
Yeah, it was something I think is one of the similarities between this and smartphone is both having a kind of like a user interface that helps players along, because there is a lot of information, as you saw. There's a lot to know, but the game kind of helps you along.
Yeah, you can follow that and know what to do.
Right.
Now, that being said, I think, since we're talking about smartphone, there are two very different games. And I'm hesitant to call this the card game version of Mobile Markets because I think this one's slightly more advanced. I think there's more going on in this game than in the other one. It feels that way to me, at least. Like, if you were like, which one's a heavier weight, I would say this one.
I tend to agree. I think this is slightly thinkier, for lack of a better term. I think that your decision space is larger here, maybe. I think that the things that I liked about smartphone are also here, which is basically that whole pricing turn order aspect to me is the brilliance of both of these games. I'm glad that they're both here, but they're very much their own kind of games. But I agree, this is crunchier, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think this one is, thematically, obviously, it's sort of a pushed-in, zoomed-in feel or world of view. But I find this one to be more complicated because there is more to it, but that stuff is also more flavorful and thematic, which means this is not that much harder to play.
Right.
I can relate to it, right? I mean, I like Smartphone plenty. I think Smartphone's a great game, but it is sort of an abstracted, mathematical view of what's going on. You are selling millions of telephones. You are sort of making moves that are hard to grasp. In this game, I'm selling a phone to that guy for that much money. He wants 5G. You know what I mean?
Right.
And while there's more going on, I find it more relatable that way.
I really enjoy, you mentioned theme, I really enjoy the little hidden mechanical theme gems in there. Like, you can get change for your technology, right? You don't spend all your technology bucks or whatever throughout the game. You can get change because if I invested in technology, like I'm working on flip phones or something, I can use that next year even if I didn't complete it.
Right.
So I can use that technology growth later. But you can't use your advertising from last year for this year. You're not going to get new customers because you put on a commercial a year ago.
Oh, wow.
So I really enjoy, like, there's tons of little things in there. Even the player boards that you flip over with the action selection, which is similar to smartphone.
Yeah, very much. Yeah.
But I noticed that, like, if you sell really cheap phones, you can advertise them a bunch, but you can't have a lot of technology. If they're cheap, they're not going to have a lot of technology bonuses. And there's just
the
fun
opposite
things.
sides of the tiles basically have
And
opposing views.
There's thematic stuff in there. If you spent a lot of money on technology, you're going to have a little less income. And I think they put it in anyway. So it's really very interesting, those little gems of theme that you kind of have to dig into.
I'm starting to learn more about you as a gamer, and one of the things I feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you like these kind of connections between theme and mechanisms.
Oh, yeah.
And you notice things I don't even.
Wow.
I
I like mechanisms.
I was impressed. I didn't think about the advertising. I'm going to use that in my next teach.
Yeah.
Because people ask me, why doesn't it carry over? I was like, because it doesn't. But you know what? I do like the theming into this game. Again, you mentioned because of the micro part of it.
Yeah.
I sold a phone to Bob because he wanted this, and I got it to him. And my favorite part of the game, in smartphone, my favorite part is putting those two things together.
Yes.
I still like that here.
Yes.
But my favorite part here is building the phone.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there going, all right, we don't need 5G. It's too expensive. You know, they're putting the phone this time. I like that each turn you build your phone.
Yep.
But I will say that part also makes this a very strong economic swing to that end there. Because I'm sitting there thinking, how am I going to sell my phone? And I know we keep comparing this to smartphone, but I think it's a legit thing to do. In smartphone, I notice that the prices of phones tend to not waver as much. And in this game, they're all over the place.
It's really hard to guess sometimes.
Because in smartphone, everyone sold them for $5. Everyone sold them for $6. I'm like, oh, okay. Here, they can all go for the highest price, which never happens in smartphone.
Right.
And I like that. I felt that there was much more price maneuverability, but be warned, if you don't like economic games, you might want to pass on this one because there's a strong economic flavor to it.
And there will be some analysis paralysis in here, for sure, especially later in the game. When you've now got various technologies you can put in, you are doing that math. It's simple math, but you have to consider many things. If I make this game with these 3 technologies, it's this much to make. Who am I selling it to?
Right.
Suddenly, like who? Just because I had this one thing, who now will buy it?
Right.
There's some crunchiness in here that belies the size of this box.
Because it's almost. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, I was gonna say, and it can be super cutthroat.
Yes.
Which for me, that was a little bit of a turnoff. Was just that, like, I had played some really nice games, and then I played a game where I got crushed because Chris kept undercutting me just by $1. And I was like, I can't sell to anybody.
Yeah.
Whereas if we went on opposite spectrums, if I went super expensive, you went super cheap, or vice versa, then we had different customers to sell to. But if we were fighting for those same customers, it hurt.
Just quickly on both of those, number one, this idea of the AP, and that's because there's pretty much open information, right? Everybody, you know your turn order, you know who's selling before you, who's selling after you, know what features they've got, basically. So you can math all that out if you want to. I don't tend to play that way, but you can do that. And so do be aware of that. If your play group is one that has people that want to math out everything, that's an issue potentially, and it can be very punishing, especially your first playthrough. You have to probably be aware of that. This is one of those games where people that have played the game 3 or 4 times are likely going to absolutely destroy somebody who has not played before.
Sure. Yes.
You need to get a full game of this in, I think, before you really start to see the intricacies of that pricing turn order thing. It's massive. Now, it's probably my favorite part of both of these games, but it can feel very punishing your first time. So
that's funny. We all have kind of different favorite parts.
Yeah.
Like my favorite part is the people flop.
Yeah.
And the special ability cards. Having a special unique ability with text, not just like 5G or flip or whatever. Those 2 things are some of my favorite things. Seeing at who's new and being like, ooh, this guy will buy it for how much? Okay, sure, I can make that phone for him. I like those things. So,
all right, well, what are your final thoughts and rating?
I like this one a lot. I think it's a very strong game. Yes, AP for sure. You got to be careful with the analysis paralysis. The flavor for me, and I know I say that a lot, but the thematic attraction, the fact that I can relate to it a little bit more, means I do like this a little bit more than Smartphone. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. You got to try it out. If you like your economic games and you want strong, different theming in there, Mobile Markets is what you want.
All right, I also really like it. So I'm going to get asked, do you need both in your collection? So this is my answer to that. I like both games a lot. I'm talking about Smartphone and Mobile Markets. If I'm playing with 4 or 5 players, I'm probably tilting towards Smartphone. And if I'm playing with 2 or 3, easily Mobile Markets.
Every time.
Now, there's exceptions. There's an expansion board for Smartphone, which plays well with 2 and 3. And Mobile Markets worked fine for me at 4 and 5, too. But I like this one a little better. I'm an 8.5, probably, yes. I really enjoyed this, and I just got a lot of enjoyment over the microcosm that was selling a phone to a person. I don't know why that amused me more than selling it to a whole country.
Yeah.
It hooks you, right? You have something to relate to. Yeah.
Yes.
There you go. Okay, well, I gave this game a 7, so not quite as high as you all. But I think that this game is a very clean, really well-made game. It is a little too mean for me in certain moments, and so there's a lot that I like about it. There's a lot that I think is really well done, and then there's also some pretty brutal things, and so that's why I'm making it a 7, because I definitely recommend it for people that like that. And there's some very good stuff. So, yep, that's mine.
Yeah, I'm actually coming in at an 8.5, but I feel like this rating could go up.
Really?
Yeah, more plays have raised its esteem with me instead of lowering it. I taught it a number of times at the retreat.
Did you come into this with a little suspicion at the beginning?
I did, absolutely. Well, first of all, Smartphone, I was actively avoiding. I had no interest in it until I played it. Neither of these games should work for me. I don't like mathy feeling games. I don't particularly love economic games necessarily, but there's just something about these games that click in my brain. Everyone has those games that just kind of click for them. This is one of them. Smartphone is one of them, but they are very much their own animals. And I agree with you 100%. Player count is going to be my big delineator on whether I play this or smartphone. With 5, I'm always going to go with smartphone. With 2 and 3, I'm going to lean towards this.
Yeah.
Although, like you said, they do play well, depending on expansions and such. But yeah, I think this is a very, very excellent game.
Well, there you go. That's Mobile Markets, Smartphone Inc. game. I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Z Garcia.
I'm Mike DeLisio.
And I'm Wendy Yee.
Have fun. We'll see you very soon.